I think oftentimes Judaism or Jewish learning gets siloed into Wednesday afternoon, but we're trying to model a world in which Jewish learning permeates your whole being. And I feel like what I experienced in my time at the foundation and celebrating this fellowship that was so generous was also a model of integration, of how Jewish life can be your full self. So my dad is a rabbi and my mom is a Jewish educator. So the main thing I knew growing up was that I didn't want to be in Jewish education professionally. I worked at Morgan Stanley in investment banking, which I think is something that my parents still to this day don't understand. But I ended up really wanting to build a Jewish community that I wanted to partake in. Despite living on the Upper West Side of New York City, there wasn't a Jewish community that I felt drawn to. So we started this minyan called Hadar. After about a year of running that in a lay capacity with some other partners, I sort of was confronted by my friend who said, "Don't you really want to do this more full-time?" And I realized that I did. So I changed directions. I think the vision was that in America, if you wanted to have men and women learning Jewish texts at a high level on an intensive basis, you either had to become a professional Jew, like a rabbi, or you had to go in separate sex environments. So that was sort of a gap that we noticed and really wanted to work on. The AVI CHAI Fellowship really played a critical role in the development of Hadar. When we started, we were in the summer of 2007, we were running an 8-week program. We didn't really have concrete timeline to expand to a full year institution. At that early stage in building out our vision, that was critical to have an organization, a foundation that had such strong name recognition that you could say to anybody in the Jewish education world the word AVI CHAI, and they understood that to represent quality and real deep care and investment. The $75,000 a year for 3 years at that moment was what we needed to build that runway to really take that walk off a cliff to go into a full-time organization. And the other element to the AVI CHAI Fellowship that was so significant for me was the peer network that was built. One example is at the time of the AVI CHAI Fellowship, I was in the middle of writing a book, and I showed the full draft to Erica Brown, who was another fellow. Erica kindly read the entire thing, and she gave me significant feedback that really influenced the way in which that book turned out. And only because of the fellowship did I have the opportunity to be in real relationship with Erica. And that's just one example of the ways in which that peer group was so important to me as we grew out Mechon Hadar. The mission of Hadar is to create and sustain vibrant, practicing, egalitarian communities of Torah, Avodah, and Chesed, of Torah, service, and loving kindness. We do a host of immersive programs. We believe that immersive learning, the yeshiva learning environment, makes an impact on people in ways that episodic learning just can't do. Our students spend time in day school classrooms, working with the students all the way from early elementary school grades through high school. And the idea was really to take people in their 20s, our students, and turn them loose on a classroom of students who may not necessarily know that people want to study Jewish texts of their own volition. And that was supported by a grant from the AVI CHAI Foundation and matched with some other local funders. So really the way in which our work has intersected with a lot of the interests of the foundation has grown over the last decade. We run an Educators Institute every summer where we take day school teachers and bring them in to our Beit Midrash, to our study hall, both for the opportunity for them to learn Torah, but also to work with professional development that introduces Chavruta into the classroom when they go back to their day schools. The natural application of a Beit Midrash environment to day school teachers was really significant, and the support of the AVI CHAI Foundation through a partnership at the time with the Schechter Network really brought that program into being. Another sort of connection with the AVI CHAI suite of programs that impacted my own life was the opportunity I had a year and a half ago to give an Eli talk, and I spoke specifically about interacting with prayer and the ways in which prayer could be more meaningful.
There's some deeper meaning there, even if we haven't figured it all out. So we don't have to understand it all. We can just have some sense that there's something there to be uncovered, even if we don't do it now.
So Mechon Hadar is celebrating its 10th year this year, and when I think back to that summer when we had 18 students for 8 weeks, and it was an incredibly intensive experience for them, but the impact was ultimately somewhat limited. Now we run 10 immersive programs in a calendar year, and we have 2,000 people who have been through those programs who live in over 100 cities. And part of the way in which we're seeing the impact of our work is when they go back to their communities from the immersive experience that they have at Hadar, how they start to change their Jewish community, how they bring a different kind of Jewish learning spirit, a different kind of Jewish prayer, a different kind of ethos about, how far you could go with deep Jewish connection in these communities. I remember when we celebrated the AVI CHAI fellowship at the award ceremony, the dinner ended with Mariv, ended with the evening service. And it was the first and probably last time that I've ever been at a foundation event where there was a prayer service that was built into the reception. For me, that speaks to a level of integration where the work of the foundation is not just programs, but also a lived Jewish life. And I think that's part of what we're also trying to model at Hadar. What I care about most is what I get to work on during the day and what I get to work on professionally. And even though I sometimes fantasize about what would it have been like to stay at Morgan Stanley and never have to worry about paying tuition at Jewish day school, ultimately I think choosing a life of meaning and allowing that to be the defining element of my professional career is a huge blessing, and I'm just so grateful.